Just need one more piece of wood and... Ah, there we go. Time to sell it off.
Chopping wood is fun and all, but I need to go on a real quest. Something with adventure and mystery and heartbreak. What game has all of that? Of course, Oblivion.
Oblivion is loaded with interesting quests, from the outright exciting to the downright creepy. So here are my top 5 Oblivion quests of all time. It isn't that often you get to solve crime mysteries in RPGs, and quite frankly, I don't remember any from Morrowind. And maybe one from Skyrim. But Oblivion actually had a good amount of them. However, the one that sticks with me the most has got to be this one. Right there. The quest begins with the Countess of Coral for some reason believing that I am the perfect person to solve this mystery. Which I find even more ironic since she trusts me enough to wander around her castle trying to solve crimes, but not enough to buy a house. The goal of the quest is to look for clues and talk to residents of the castle to discover who stole a painting, and in case that sounded just way too hard, the Countess will also give you a list of possible suspects. But be careful, if you accuse somebody and you get it wrong,
I shall be quite cross with you.
Naturally, the first person I questioned was this guy standing right next to her, because he looked rather suspicious. But he told me he was with her all night? Talk about guarding her body, am I right? To my joy, I quickly realized that you must use the super fun, never irritating persuasion system in order to actually ask them any questions. Which means there goes a half hour of my life wasted struggling to please these people, as well as my hard-earned cash. I also quickly discovered that while you may run into some clues while looking around, you can't actually use them as evidence until you've questioned everybody first, which seems a little unrealistic. This problem is likely why I spent many days of my life in middle school walking around this castle confused trying to solve this quest. Despite this, the quest is still one of the more enjoyable ones in the game. It is not every day you get to become a true detective.
How dare you accuse me without enough evidence to back up your story?
It has been a long and hard day of adventuring, and you find yourself needing a nap and quite possibly a drink. So what better place to get both of those things than at the Bloated Float? Except for some reason he doesn't sell any drinks, or anything actually. He's a fraud! Fortunately he does still have beds, and I have heard that I have never had a rest like this.
You've never had a night's rest like this, I assure you.
Certainly not suspicious. Well, it turns out Ormel was right. I never had a night's rest like this. Because never before had I been sleeping in an inn that was getting hijacked. Apparently some brigands decide to steal the ship and bring it out to sea. It turns out, however, that those brigands are idiots. I would also like to mention that the bouncer Ormel hired is completely useless. You had one job, man. One job. You suck. At this point you have a couple of choices. You can either just kill the brigands, or you can mess with them and then kill them. I prefer the latter. If you did enough sleuth work, then once you get to the leader, you can ask to join her. She will of course scoff at you, but in a ploy to impress her, you tell her that you know about everything they have done. She is so surprised by your knowledge that she surrenders. It is at this point you learn why the brigands commandeered the ship in the first place. Apparently Ormel the innkeeper made up a story about the ship in order to drive more customers to his inn. And it clearly worked. An unexpected voyage may not be a long quest, but it's one of those that's just so unique and sudden that you can't help but love it. Especially if, like me, you came upon it accidentally while trying to level up. Pretty much all of the Dark Brotherhood quests are really good. From the one where you have to hide in a crate so you can sneak onto a pirate ship and assassinate the captain, to that time you break into some poor guy's house and drop a giant animal head on him. But there is one quest in particular that stands out the most, because finally, I have been invited to a party, and it is with the most wonderful people.
No pigs allowed inside, you see.
Oh boy, my first party, I'm so excited! In this particular quest, you must attend a scavenger hunt party with multiple guests, and everyone is a target. The other guests have been told they are searching for a hidden chest of gold, and that no one can leave until the chest is found. Of course, the truth is the only thing they will find is the sweet release of death. If you are able to kill everyone without being detected, then you get a nice bonus. And fortunately for you, the guests are completely dumb.
You're a funny one.
I have never seen such blatant obliviousness as this.
You'll protect me, won't you?
No, I won't. This is going to be too easy. This guy was so worried about dying that he decided to take a quick nap. And then another one. If you want to be more serious during this quest, you can talk to each guest and learn their
darkest secrets.
Each person has a small bit of backstory that can be exploited to convince them to go to places of solitude within the house, where they can be easily dispatched. Personally though, I like to just shoot them in the face. I didn't do it, officer, I swear! Bethesda is known for throwing humor in their games, from the subtle joke to the downright ridiculous.
I'll calicrack to find you.
And when it comes to anything with Sheogorath, it almost always falls in the downright ridiculous category. And as you might have guessed, this quest is no exception. It starts off with you discovering the Mad God's Shrine and realizing that everybody there is completely crazy.
I used to be a dog. I got better.
You find out that in order to start the quest, you must find some totally random items, including yarn and some cabbage. After that happens, and trust me, it shouldn't take long, you return to the shrine, and finally Sheogorath gives you a quest. Your goal is to mess with some villagers living nearby because they have some end-of-the-world prophecy, and I guess it is kind of dumb. So you head over to the village to learn more of the prophecy in order to simulate it happening. The shaman there tells you about the first two signs that signify the prophecy is coming true. The first one being that the town will become overrun with stinky rodents. And the second one is that all the livestock will die out mysteriously. However, he refuses to tell you the third.
I will not speak of this.
It's no matter though. Conveniently, the village actually makes it pretty easy to carry out the prophecy, as they keep everything you need on hand. Like say, a super stinky cheese that if cooked could draw rats for miles around. After that is the step of figuring out how to kill off all the livestock. Now you could simply murder them while everybody sleeps, but I prefer a much more tactful approach.
It's right around here where the hilarity really begins to take place.
After the sheep are dead, you hear Sheogorath's voice telling you to go outside, unless of course you already were outside. Look up into the sky and you will witness the final part of the prophecy come true. What, no cats? Oh, right. Speaking of cats, now that the prophecy has come true, they freak out and run for their lives. Except that they don't actually run away from the village. Where are you even going? Nowhere, apparently. The reward you get for completing this quest is equally just as ridiculous as the quest itself, albeit rather overpowered. And that reward is the Webbajack. Like the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild questline is one of those that is loaded with good missions to go on, each one testing your intellect, patience, and sneakability.
Yeah, I said sneakability. It's a thing.
But none of these quests quite compare to the very last one, the Ultimate Heist. In this quest, you must sneak into the Royal Palace and steal an Elder Scroll from the Moth Priest. In case you are wondering, it is not very simple. The quest begins with you heading into the Imperial Palace basement in search of the mythical Hourglass of Time. Along with it, you find probably one of the weirdest and most confusing things I've seen in this game thus far. I mean, why is that even there? Who used this chair? And this club? Anyway, after activating the Hourglass of Time, you must head into the sewers to find the Old Way. I think it is important to mention that it is probably one of the longest quests in the game. You spend a very long time clambering through sewers and tunnels fighting rats and zombies until finally you find an ancient temple. It's here that some of the puzzly bits begin, and I use that term pretty loosely. For puzzles, they're pretty simple. Oh wow, the button was up here all along, and all I had to do was jump. One of the more interesting part of the quest, however, was in the Aelid ruins, where you have to shoot a specific arrow into a spot that opens up on some statue when you stand on a pressure plate in order to gain access to the palace. Bullseye! At this point, the majority of the quest is over, but in my opinion, this is when the fun really starts. Which is to say, the sneaking, thieving parts. You mainly just have to watch out for a couple guards and some blind monks, which is pretty easy, at least if your sneak skill is high enough. I would also recommend doing the Nocturnal quest before this one in order to get the skeleton key, because trust me, you don't want to run out of lockpicks after you've made it this far. Eventually you find yourself in the Elder Scrolls library. After getting the scroll, you must continue up the palace levels until you reach the Battle Mage's room. Inside her room is a fireplace and our exit.
Wait, I needed to equip the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack? Uh-oh.
If you successfully survived the fall down the chimney, then you're basically home free. And now it is time to collect your reward. I won't spoil the ending for you too much though, because it was actually kind of a twist in the plot. But I will say the reward is pretty darn cool.
As I live and breathe, the Grey Fox.
Man, those were some pretty fun quests. But you know what? I should go on a real quest. Yeah. Alright. You know what? I think I'd rather just play video games.
Let's just go to this house over here because there's nothing that could go wrong over here, that's for sure.
Some are good marksmen, and some are not.